Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
If you follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you should send us a screenshot of that rating, of that 5-star rating, because we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker for free and a nice little personalized note. So please rate us 5 stars. We have one 1-star rating on Apple Podcasts. I know exactly who it was.
Who?
I think it was Michael Porter Jr. or one of his family members, because back when we had a big discussion about Michael Porter Jr. in one of our earlier episodes, he wasn't at that time allowing anyone to add him to anything. So I found his sisters and tagged them to our post, which looking back was probably not my best move, a little bit petty of me. And we have one 1-star rating from way back then. And I'm pretty sure it was either him or someone in his family.
Wow.
Do you think that's probably right? Or do you think we have another enemy who is giving us a 1-star rating?
I really haven't thought about it that much.
Please rate us and give us a 5-star rating so we can even out that 1-star rating. If you do that, if you rate us, we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker and a nice little note. Today is Tuesday when we release. We hope you are voting today.
Election day.
There are a lot of things to vote for depending on the state that you're in. Obviously, there's a presidential election.
We put in our ballots over the weekend, so we submitted them early, which felt really good. And even if you don't think your voice matters, it does, and you should be voting because that is your right, and have an opinion on someone. It is important.
I've had a yoga teacher say to me once, if you don't have an opinion, you don't really have anything. And to make sure that you get informed enough to have an opinion on things that matter, I think that's very important as we head into this dreadful election season.
For sure. You mentioned depending on what state, you have a lot of things to vote for. You and I filled out our ballots separately, and you did it first. And I remember you saying it took you so long because you had to look into everything. And then when I went to fill it out, I was like, wow, you're not kidding. Just sitting there reading up on all the things I'm voting for. It's important to do. Yes, it takes time, but just take an hour or so out of your time to submit that. Outside of voting, tell us what you did this weekend.
We're recording early today, which is new for us. So usually we record at nighttime. Sometimes we've had a couple of drinks when we record, and that has gone really, really poorly to the point where I've had to edit for numerous hours because we just had one too many drinks.
That was only one time.
It only happened once, but it was enough to scar me for life. And now we're recording early.
And I'm drinking coffee.
Wow. It is a whole new day for us. And so this will be interesting to see how we do when we record early. But this past weekend, we had a chill weekend here in Denver. It was great because I think even though my body feels better from the jet lag from Kenya, like I can't even imagine what our last episode sounded like because I just feel like I was so jet lagged and tired. However, I feel a little bit more normal now. And I know that jet lag is still a thing, so we're still tired at night. But we went out and got a few drinks, just us two on Saturday. It's really nice when we just have some one-on-one time. And we got talking about things that haunt us, which was really funny because it is still spooky season. We celebrated Halloween last weekend. And so we were talking about things that still haunt us from back in the day. And we were cracking up. We were cracking up on Saturday night. Let's see now that we're in the morning if it's still as funny.
Yeah, you definitely were getting a kick out of it. And what are some of the things you were telling me that still haunt you?
So there were a couple of things. So this is a little embarrassing to talk about. But one was when I babysat when I was younger, I used to eat all of the food in the house of the people I babysat for. I would clean out their closet. And to this day, it still haunts me because I'm like, they must have come home and looked in their cabinet and just been like, oh my gosh, what happened? There was only one person here last night. How did she eat all of this food?
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I'm not going to say eat the whole person's closet, but I would go hard on the snacks in the closet for the families that I babysat for. So I don't think it's something to be ashamed of. I think that was very normal. And I bet other people who listen can relate to that if they ever babysat.
Yeah, you reassured me a little bit, which felt good. And they did ask me to continue to babysit. So maybe it was just the price they were willing to pay.
I'm like, did you keep their kids alive and well?
Yes.
And the answer is yes. So I think
did.
at the end of the day, that's what they're more worried about.
And the other thing that really still haunts me is, farts that I did that I couldn't control.
No, you can definitely control. You chose not to control.
No, Danielle. Okay. So there are like 3 specific farts in my life that I will remember for eternity. And that sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night as a 33-year-old, they come and creep back into my head.
Oh my God.
So I used to go to pitching lessons when I was younger and I would have to exert myself. And sometimes I was a little gassy and it was just me and my pitching coach in the room. And this is so embarrassing. I would egg fart and
It's so gross.
then just ignore it. And it still haunts me to this day. Talk about spooky. Can you relate to that at all?
I mean, not exactly in that regard. Like, I feel like if it's you and one other person, I knew not to because they know it would be you who farted.
I know, Danielle, but I could not hold it.
I said that last night. I said you should have seen a doctor because it sounds like a personal problem.
It definitely was what I was eating. It definitely was tied to my diet.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
even now in CrossFit, when I have to put a sandbag on my belly and walk with it, I'm like, how is anyone not farting right now? Because it just compresses on your stomach. That's why I don't eat before I go to CrossFit because I just can't. It would be chaos.
This is also why you struggled with marathon training. Your
Yes.
stomach was always, so you got to figure that out.
I know. I definitely have something that is undiagnosed with my stomach.
Well, what did I say? See a doctor. You refuse.
It is awkward to go to a doctor and be like, I have really...
You're talking about it on the podcast,
Yeah,
so is it
it's
that
true.
awkward?
That's true.
A doctor has seen way worse.
Those are things that haunt me for the rest of time.
It happens. It's okay.
Anyway, how was your weekend?
Saturday morning, I woke up super early to run another 20 miler, second one of this training block, and my final big long run of this training block. I am a few weeks out for Philly marathons. It always feels really good to get that last hard week of training out. And now I get to taper. But to your point, the jet lag is still real. I had to travel to the East Coast for work earlier in the week, so I've just been fighting all different time zones.
And now we're falling
And now, yeah, with the time change, shout out to all the New York City marathoners running on Sunday. Always exciting to wake up and be able to turn on the TV and watch a marathon.
back. It did make me miss it a little bit.
Wow.
I am going to continue to enter the lottery for the New York City Marathon.
Same. Maybe
And
we'll
let-
get in next year.
And let fate decide if I should run another marathon.
I was talking to my sisters and they said there's a 4% chance overall that you get in. And I was like, well, Carolyn is the 4%.
And I think that's broken down even more to like 2% in the tri-state area
Yeah.
and then 2%
Well, that's
to
why I said
people outside.
4% overall.
Yeah. Let's get into the highlight reel for this week. So we will start with the U.S. Women's National Team had a 3-game stretch of friendlies, 2 against Iceland, 1 against Argentina, but I am going to talk about the 3-0 win over Argentina. This game celebrated Rose Lavelle's 100th cap that she earned back in June. Her whole family was there, including her dog, Wilma Jean Wrinkles.
I love that. I wouldn't expect any other name for Rose Lavelle's dog.
Exactly. It is a wrinkly dog and it had little headphones on to protect
Aw.
its ears and was looking very happy as a bulldog can look. She was the captain for the match, had a bunch of supporters there.
That's awesome. I love Rose Lavelle. Obviously, she's been on the team for a while now, so it's cool to see her get celebrated like that.
100 caps is a big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of people do not get 100 caps. It shows your longevity
Yep.
within the national team. It's a really big accomplishment. The NWSL is about to enter playoffs, and Emma Hayes, the head coach for the U.S. Women's National Team, has really changed up the lineup over this 3-game stretch to 1, make sure everyone's staying healthy as they head into NWSL playoffs, and 2, to provide a lot of new experience to new players, which I think is great. 3 different U.S. Women's National Team players started and received their first caps in this game. Ava Gattino, Mandy Hott, and Alyssa Melanson. You can see what Emma Hayes is doing here, trying to get people their first caps, trying to see different rotations, trying really to get people experience and build the program out over the long run, which I think is so incredibly smart, and still finding ways to win games, which really speaks to her as a head coach. Hal Hirschfeld, Emily Sams, Yasmin Ryan, and Emma Sears all earned their first caps in the series against Iceland, and Emma Sears became the fourth U.S. women's national team player to record a goal and an assist in her debut.
Wow.
So first time playing for the national team,
great.
scores a goal, gets an assist. Hal Hirschfeld, my crush in the NWSL, also received her first start on Wednesday against Argentina. Getting to see her in the midfield, and I think the midfield for the U.S. women's national team is where they struggle the most. And so to see her in that midfield position was really cool. I hope she can continue in that role because she played solidly in the game against Argentina.
It's cool to see Emma Hayes mix it up like that and just see where players land. And obviously you can do those things in practice, but to be able to do it in a game and let the spectators also see how those players pan out, it's good coaching strategy.
We need to take a moment for Naomi Girma.
Your favorite.
She is a center back for the U.S. women's national team. She plays defense. She headed her first international goal in the 37th minute versus Argentina. Her smile from ear to ear, she has the most perfect teeth, the most perfect skin, her first international goal. Then in the 44th minute, she's part of an own goal. So Argentina had an own goal that made it 2-0 US, but it was off Naomi Girma. Naomi Girma had a critical play in it. So she's now contributed to 2 goals.
That's awesome.
And then in the 49th minute, she heads home her second goal of the game, scores herself a brace, and the U.S. are up 3-0, and that's how it stands. She's 24 years old. She's arguably the best player in soccer right now. She is so solid, such a good leader, and she comes from the center back and goes up and goes and scores goals. Her job is to prevent goals, and she's out there scoring. It was so amazing to see.
I saw something that Sophia Smith posted, and she was like, here's the 4th member of Triple Espresso, my best friend Naomi Girma. And apparently she scores goals now. And I thought that was really cool to see because I know those two are very close. And it's just cool to see her be so dynamic on the field.
And the players that we looked up to when we were younger and in high school and college, the Megan Rapinos, the Kelly O'Hara's who are now retiring. Now these younger groups of girls who are looking to the U.S. women's national team have someone like Naomi Girma to look up to.
Yeah.
Women are always put in this position where they have to say that, oh, I'm doing this for the future generations. And it's like, well, men never have to say that. They do it for themselves. They do it because they love the sport. And that should be enough. Women are always put in a position where they have to be providing back to the younger generations. However, I just think it's so cool that young girls have someone like Naomi Girma to look up to. The U.S. women's national team closes out 2024 in Europe. This is going to be some really difficult matches, a really good test after the Olympics. So it'll be interesting to see how Emma Hayes structures the roster, and it will be after the NWSL season. But they close out 2024 in Europe with matches against second-ranked England on November 30th and then 11th ranked Netherlands, which we know that the Netherlands, we've had some fun matches with them in the past. That will be on December 3rd. So some big matches coming up in friendlies. And although friendlies are called friendlies, they're not tournament matches. They do contribute to your overall ranking. So any national team match is a big match. Looking forward to watching those in the coming months.
Yes. Up next, we have number 2 Nebraska Cornhuskers, who swept number 7 Wisconsin Badgers in NCAA volleyball this past Friday night. We watched this match. It was a packed stadium. The crowd consisted of 7,229 fans. It just looked insane in there. This was the first time Nebraska beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin since 2013.
To beat someone on their home court in front of that many people, it is difficult to do. Yeah. As you can see, they haven't done it since 2013.
Yes. And watching this game, even though Nebraska swept them, the momentum shifts were insane. I, a few times, couldn't believe that Wisconsin couldn't pull off one of the sets, but Nebraska won the sets 25-21, 25-22 and 25-19, all very close.
Nebraska handled the momentum shifts.
Yep.
I think it's so difficult to do that, to give the momentum to the opposing team and have a belief that like, we're going to be okay. They're going to have a couple momentum shifts, but we're going to be able to bounce back. That is a sign of an incredible team. And to sweep a team like this, Wisconsin is number 7, Nebraska's number 2. To sweep a number 7 team, they made Wisconsin look like not a number 7 team. Wisconsin against any other team is going to look a lot better than the way they looked in this match.
I thought it was interesting. You had mentioned on Friday night, wow, they call a lot of timeouts. I think that kind of contributed to some of the momentum shifts. It's go, go, go. And then all of a sudden you have a timeout and the momentum changes. So interesting to see how that plays a role.
I think too many timeouts.
Yeah.
That's my personal feeling. I've never played volleyball. Maybe they very much need them, but it just felt like a lot of timeouts.
It did. Nebraska was led by Taylor Landfair, who had 13 kills, and Merritt Beeson, who had 11 kills. The Nebraska defense was the key factor in this game. As a team, they totaled 10.5 blocks, which you might be wondering, how do you have 10.5 blocks? Tell us about that.
So the total number of team blocks is the sum of block solos, so one person going up, and then half the number of block assists. So if 2 people go up and they block it and it goes in on the other team's side, it's counted as 1/2 of a block.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. They don't give a block to each person, which is how you can get 0.5.
Interesting. And with that, there's a little less than a month until the bracket for the 2024 NCAA Division I women's volleyball tournament is chosen. That will take place on December 1st. And you can expect to see a lot of Big Ten teams in that bracket.
For sure. The Big Ten is stacked. So looking forward to that as well.
Yes. Up next, we got WNBA news.
So last week we had spoken about some of the WNBA coaches who were fired. Even when we released last week, there were more coaches fired: Christy Sides, Stephanie White. However, everyone knew that the Stephanie White firing from the Connecticut Sun was really to set her up to take the role at the Indiana Fever. So this past week, she was announced the new coach at the Indiana Fever.
She is a very good coach. I was shocked when she got fired from Connecticut Sun, and then obviously it all made sense when she got picked up here. Curious to see how that next season will go for them.
Stephanie White grew up in Indiana. She was named Indiana Miss Basketball and the Gatorade National Player of the Year in 1995. She then played at Purdue, so her Indiana roots run deep. She even played for the Fever. In 2000, she was selected by the Indiana Fever in the expansion draft and spent the last 5 years of her playing career with the team. And then she was even an assistant coach for the Fever for 4 seasons. They won a WNBA championship during that time in 2012. And she stepped in as head coach for the Indiana Fever in the 2015 and 2016 seasons. So she will be returning back to the Fever, collaborating with 2 Rookie of the Years in Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. Obviously, this team is on the rise. So very interesting to see what a new coach can do here. Christy Sides, I think, did a good job. However, this was her first head coaching position. I think they wanted someone with a little bit more experience, especially as the players on this team are starting to gel together. When you have Caitlin Clark, you've got to make sure that you've got the right people in place to support that. We'll see where all of these coaches end up. So many coaches have been fired, and I understand it. I guess, to a point. I understand it because the WNBA is just growing so rapidly, and they want to make sure they have the best in order to make sure that they get a fan base, right? However, we've been talking about the officials so much. Are we going to get any updates on what officials have been fired, do you think?
I doubt it.
I need like a Reddit page of the ins and outs of the WNBA officials. Actually, I need a reality show of the WNBA officials. I think that would be really helpful. We should get to know them, get to know their biases, get to know why they wanted to be a referee in the first place. Don't you think?
A reality TV show for refs. Talk about more distractions, but I guess that would be pretty entertaining.
It would be really messy, right?
Yeah. You know, my dirty little secret is I like to watch Housewives of New Jersey, and just putting refs in that situation, I can't even imagine.
I think we know so little about the refs because if we knew any more about them, we would start to understand their biases. I think they purposely don't provide a lot of information about them. However, the refs need some help.
I think to that point, though, fans are crazy. I feel like for their safety, the point you just made, they should not be on a reality TV show.
Yeah, it's like federal judges. Like, we shouldn't know their addresses because they just, it could get real scary real fast.
But maybe a good way to fix this is maybe not reality TV, but more training.
Okay, fine. More training for referees. At the end of the day, it's really hard because referees are humans. Maybe we need AI referees. Look, now I'm
that took a turn.
Now I'm nixing jobs for good, hardworking people.
Yeah, now people are going to come after you.
Yeah, no, I don't want AI referees. We already use video enough, and sometimes it doesn't even work. More training is great.
Yes.
And I don't know if they do this, but I think they should be receiving feedback about the number of fouls they call against certain teams, against certain players. Really to be taking a hard look about that, because all of us have bias. And because referees are humans, that bias is going to come out.
Those are all great points. We'll see how the refs do in the upcoming season.
All right, let's head into ACC Cross Country Championships.
Yes, so the 2024 ACC Cross Country Championship took place this past Friday, November 1st. We had the opportunity to watch, and the women competed in the 6K for this competition. Grace Hartman, a sophomore from NC State, came in first overall with a time of 19 minutes, 15.1 seconds.
So a 6K is a little bit longer than a 5K, so a little bit longer than 3 miles. And Grace did it in 19 minutes.
Yes, she was moving. She was really ahead of the other runners until the end. When you see the times of the other runners, you'll know they weren't that far ahead. But for a while, I feel like she was the only one on the camera when they were panning in on her on the course. Then you have Sylvia Jalelgo, freshman from Clemson, who came in second with a time of 19 minutes, 22.6 seconds. And Hannah Gape, sophomore from NC State, finished in third at 19 minutes, 26.5 seconds. Even though in the top three you had 2 NC State runners, they did not come in first. This was the first time in Notre Dame history that they won the ACC Cross Country Championship. The way the scoring happens in these races is whatever place you come in, that's the number of points. Grace, who came in first, she got 1 point. They add up all the points, and the teams with the lower scores, that's how they rank them. So Notre Dame came in first place, Stanford came in second place, and then North Carolina came in third place.
So NC State didn't even make the top 3.
Correct. And they hosted this championship. It was interesting when we were watching, because if you're exerting yourself to your highest ability, especially at a distance like that, your legs, the lactic acid just builds up, and some people just collapse. We were watching people collapse after the finish line. We were seeing people trip before the finish line. We were like, what the hell is happening right now?
I say this all the time. Runners are an interesting breed. They just are. I think they're a little too extreme. And talk about things that haunt someone. The falling towards the end, the falling after, it looked like a
war
crime
zone.
scene.
Yeah,
it looked like a war zone
it literally
afterwards.
did.
And I was like, this is what we're doing to our bodies. It's something that I don't understand. I'm so happy for those who find joy in it, but it doesn't look joyful at all while they're doing it or after.
There's a reason they call it the pain cave, and running, you are in that pain cave. But it was really cool to watch. And quick shout out to senior Abby Lovies, who is my sister's boyfriend's sister.
Whoa, how do I follow that one?
She runs for Boston College, and she was the top finisher for the Eagles. Overall, she placed 20th with a time of 20 minutes, 9.2 seconds. And the top 21 finishers earned all ACC honors. So she earned that honor as well. We have not had the chance to meet Abby yet, but I really hope we get to meet her. I would love to pick her brain about competing at that level, and it was really cool to see her on TV and place first for Boston College. So congrats to all the runners out there, and shout out Abby.
Love it.
Those are the highlights for this week. Now we will get into the deep dive. Once again, talk about the NWSL and talk about the upcoming playoffs.
Playoffs are coming up for the NWSL. Headed into this past weekend, there were 3 teams, the Portland Thorns, Bay FC, and Racing Louisville, who were vying for 2 NWSL playoff spots to round out the top 8. Louisville was in the hardest position because they needed people to lose in order for them to make it. If Portland and Bay FC won, they automatically received their bids, and both of them did just that. So the Portland Thorns beat Angel City 3-0 to secure their spot last Friday. Christine Sinclair plays for the Portland Thorns. She is a Canadian legend. She is retiring after this season. She scored first. This was a game at Portland. Portland went wild when she scored. That's awesome. So fun fact about Christine Sinclair, she is officially the world's all-time leader for international goals scored for men or women with 190 goals. She is one of the most capped international players with 331 caps.
Wow, that's a lot of games.
She has won 3 NWSL championships in 2013, 2017, and 2022. Playing in the NWSL, she's only played for the Portland Thorns. She's from that area. She's obviously Canadian, but went to college in Portland as well. And she scored in the 16th minute of this NWSL game against Angel City off a block shot. She somehow took 3 touches, which just points to how amazing she is. She was within the 18 and somehow put 3 touches on it and then put it in the back of the net. Again, Portland went crazy. It was her last regular season game. Really fun to see and to be able to witness. Portland loves Christine Sinclair.
Oh, you love to see a city just go nuts for a player. Based off those stats alone, it definitely sounds like she's going to be a future Hall of Famer. So hopefully she gets to have her last hurrah in the playoffs and win some games, and just really exciting time.
Then in the 26th minute of this game, midfielder for the Portland Thorns, Sam Coffey, who we know from the U.S. Women's National Team, found forward Sophia Smith. What a great forward line you have in Christine Sinclair and Sophia Smith and Morgan Weaver, who we will talk about. Sam Coffey finds Sophia Smith, and Sophia Smith is just involved in every single play, and she scores 2-0 Portland. Then Morgan Weaver, also a forward for the Portland Thorns, scores an extra time in the first half off an assist from Hina Sagita, and they are now up 3-0, and that's how the game ends. No one scores in the second half. Portland is hitting an interesting stride right now. They've had some ups and downs in this season, but they are looking good. They are looking healthy, which they haven't been looking pretty much all season.
I am going to knock on wood real quick, because you like to jinx teams.
Yes. But I do just want to mention that last year, there were only 6 teams in playoffs because we had a recent expansion this year with Bay FC and the Utah Royals joining the NWSL. So last year, there were only 6 teams in the playoffs. Gotham secured that 6th spot last year. They went on to win the entire thing. So these playoffs get a little crazy, and it's about teams that are getting hot. If Portland can continue to stay healthy and play the way that they can make a serious run here. Bay FC, as I mentioned, is in its inaugural season, and they beat the Houston Dash last Saturday 3-2. Kind of a crazy game to secure their spots in the playoffs.
That's really impressive for a team who is in their first season to secure a place in playoffs. That must be really exciting for that program.
Yeah, I think they said it's only the second time in NWSL history that's happened.
Wow.
I believe that's the stat. Rachel Kundananji for Bay FC led the team with 2 goals, scored a brace, including the game winner in the 54th minute. And then the third goal was actually an own goal scored by the Houston Dash.
You hate to see it.
I know. Houston Dash have struggled all year, have had some coaching issues, and their attendance at Houston is pretty low. So just a team that is struggling. Hope that we can see some changes in the offseason to bring them back up to form. So let's talk about these playoffs. Right now, at the time of recording, we know some of the seeding, but not all of the seeding for the top 8. We know who's in it. We just don't know the exact seeding. So the Orlando Pride is in the 1 spot, Washington Spirit in number 2, Gotham in number 3, and the KC Current are in the top 4. They will all have home games in the first games.
Right.
North Carolina Courage is in the 5 spot, and then Bay FC, Portland, and Chicago are figuring out how they're going to round out the bottom at the time of recording. When we release, you'll already know that. The playoffs consist of 4 quarterfinal matches. There's no byes to the semifinals. So last year there was a bye to the semifinal because there were 6 teams with 8 teams. There's no byes. We're going to have 4 quarterfinal matches. The top seed hosts the 8th seed, and we go on from there. The winner of those matches then play in the semifinals, and then we go on to the championship. The 2024 NWSL Championship game will take place at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, November 23rd.
Whoa, it's the day before my marathon. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. At CPKC Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. Great place to play and is guaranteed to be a fun show no matter who's playing in it. Again, these playoffs can get a little bit funky and crazy, so can't wait to see who's going to be in the championship game. But let's get into what we are looking forward to this week, starting with the quarterfinals in the NWSL.
Let's do it.
So this weekend, beginning Friday, November 8th through November 10th, is NWSL playoffs first round quarterfinals. Orlando Pride will take on the 8th seed Friday, November 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Prime Video. And then on Saturday, November 9th, the KC Current will take on the NC Courage, North Carolina Courage, at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS and Paramount Plus. Games continue throughout the whole weekend for that quarterfinals.
For me, I have college basketball coming up. Can you believe college basketball is here?
We love it.
I'm so excited. Number 1, South Carolina, Go Cox, will play number 9, NC State, on Sunday, November 10th. At 3 p.m. on ESPN. This is a rematch of the semifinals of the Final Four this past season, so should be a really exciting game.
Do you think South Carolina is going undefeated this season? I don't.
I would think that would be incredibly difficult. To do it once is insane. To be able to do it 2 seasons in a row, I think UConn has done it before. They had a 100-game winning streak or something back when Stewie played. I don't know the exact stat, so it's possible. Not saying it's not possible. It's extremely difficult. Do I think they're going to do it? I don't know. The teams are just so stacked this year. It's not like they're on top and everyone else just sucks. I can't say I have strong feelings that they will.
Yeah, I don't like to say this. I almost hope that they don't, because my anxiety level gets way too high when there's that much on the line. And I think you learn from losses. I want them to be a Final Four team for sure. I want them to win another national championship. The added pressure of also having to maintain an undefeated season, I feel like, is just way too much.
Yeah.
I think it's something that they can handle, obviously. They handled it last year perfectly fine. It'll be very interesting to see this matchup with NC State, because it's going to be kind of like, where is South Carolina? Are they this team that is just blowing top 10 teams out of the water? Or are they a team that, because all of these teams are getting so good, that this is going to just be a battle? Last year in the opening weekend, we saw Colorado beat LSU.
Yeah.
And that was like okay, LSU is not going to be a team that's just going to beat everybody. They're going to have to fight. And I'm wondering if it's going to be similar for South Carolina this year.
I do think overall South Carolina is better and they're returning. That's just my feeling. I just think they're better returning than LSU was last year, but it's a great point. Are they complacent right now? I have no idea. And that's going to play a big role in it.
I'm excited to see all of these games. So glad to have college basketball back.
I'm so excited. Cannot wait.
That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
See you next week.